Oh, there we go. Hello, hello. Hi, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As you're entering, I would love to know your names and your pronouns. Put them in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Anosha. Oh, you made it. Hi, Jenna. Hi, Norbert. All right, y'all. Oh, hello. Yes, welcome. We're going to go in about 30 seconds here. As y'all are entering, what's your name? What are your pronouns? Would love to know who is in the room with us today. I want to just wrapping up over there. Okay. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, Steph. Hi, Nosha. Yes, where is everybody calling in from today? I'm reporting live from upstate New York. Where is everybody calling in from? Come on, Toronto. Okay, Canadian representation. It's giving global. Let's go. Brooklyn, yes, let's go. Oh my goodness. I love Brooklyn all day long. Calgary, okay, more Canadian representation. Yes, we had a glasses queue. We talked to Peter. It's okay. The band is still going to work together. It's okay. Some of us want to be. I'm just kidding. Yes. All right, friends, while you're here, yes, East Coast, Atlanta. Do y'all want to drop your Instagram handles? Maybe we can do like a little follow train moment. Hi. Come on, Instagrams. Y'all got to follow back. That's the one rule. Okay, I'm seeing folks starting to join here, thinking that the last session is ending. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? First of all, hi, y'all. Good afternoon. I want to start with a statement from a wise and powerful alien superstar who once said, "Unique, that's what you are. Stilettos kicking vintage crystal off the bar." And today's category is being your unique, authentic selves from the interview to infinity and beyond, right? Hello, all, and thank you for joining Unique, a panel discussion with creative and tech leaders about navigating gender identity and expression in our careers. How can we be our most authentic selves in the interview, in the job, and in this unsafe and unkind world? First and foremost, my name is Tate, and my pronouns are she and they, and I'm a facilitator at Shopify. I'm reporting live from upstate Albany, New York, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this is the traditional lands of the Kanea, Kehaka, and Mohikanaak people who stewarded this land for generations before the arrival of European colonists. And today, I'm joined by some pretty unique folks and would love to give them a chance to introduce themselves to you as well, starting with Karl.
Thank you so much, Gigi. I am Karl Velasco, and my pronouns is he and him. And I'm actually here in London. I'm the executive creative director of Cult London and New York. And I've had the privilege of actually leading a group of very talented creatives, and I've been in the industry for about 20 years. And so I am going to pass you over to boys, Peter.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you all are dialing in from. My name is Peter. I use he, him pronouns. Traditionally, I'm in New York City, but I am dialing in from Los Angeles. And I work at Netflix as a workplace experience specialist. And I also am a chapter head for Out in Tech, which is a global organization uniting the LGBTQ community with the tech sector. So it's lovely to be here with you all. And I am going to pass it off to Rahul.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rahul Kothari. I am coming to you from San Francisco, but I'm based in New York. Currently, I'm the head of product marketing at Tome, which is a really fun startup that I've been at for just a little bit. Before this, I was at TikTok, leading global product marketing there. I was at Frame.io and BuzzFeed before that, also in the world of marketing. I'm going to pass it over to Jasmine.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jasmine, they, she pronouns. I got the Dwayne The Rock Johnson turtleneck chain combo going, and I'm reporting in from Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm currently a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist at Iterable, which is a marketing tech company. So super happy to be here.
All right, y'all. Thank you for introducing yourselves. We got a real awesome squad today, and I have so many questions for y'all as we jump in. So let's go ahead and get it. First and foremost, what is the importance of interviewing as your authentic self? Are there pros? Are there cons? I know it's easier said than done, but what are y'all thinking? Go ahead and hop in as the spirit moves you.
I can start with this one. I think the biggest thing for me for interviewing as yourself is it's an opportunity for you to connect with the people that you're going to be working with. And then you show up as yourself in that moment, right? And, I remember when I was first starting to interview for jobs coming out of college, and I had people around me asking me, like, are you sure that you want to talk about, like, being out? Are you sure that you want to talk about, like, those kinds of things? And what I realized there is that I don't want to work for a place that doesn't let me be who I want to be and who I am in that. And so I think, being yourself is going to help you really determine whether or not you are a good culture add to that company, whether you belong with those people who are going to be around you, and whether you're going to be able to really succeed and thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
So I think interviewing as your authentic self, it conveys a future promise, a vision of what you're going to be bringing into the table when they take on your gorgeous selves. I really believe in being yourself while interviewing, because a bit like dating, the way they respond to your authentic self during the interview will help realize if they're a good fit with you, which is exactly what Rahul was saying. I agree, you don't want to work in a place where you are not celebrated for who you are. The place needs to be where you can really be yourself, which will kind of really help you grow your craft and exponentially, and really encourage you to really tap into yourself and have a unique and multifaceted point of view, which is really important in my industry.
And I think that imposter syndrome is already, so rampant for most of us. And I think that one way to really challenge that imposter syndrome is to really show up as your authentic self, because if you're sort of masquerading as somebody else, you're going to sort of try to keep up this, this ruse. And it's so exhausting. And I think we all know what it's like to sort of pretend to try to fit into spaces, and that can be really exhausting work. It takes a lot of toll on individuals. And I think that it's just one thing that you can do that's the most productive for yourself. And hopefully that will lead to really promising results in the workplace, but also in other places as well.
Yeah, and to add on to that, it can be scary. Like, I just want to recognize it can be really scary and intimidating to like enter a space already with the anxiety of like interviewing, period. Because if you're like me, you get anxious. But to then add on to that, I might not fit what somebody anticipates for whatever I'm interviewing for. And to overcome that, it took a lot of like reassuring myself and starting with me and saying, I love me. I love the things about me, and communicating that to others. Like, I love me for these reasons, and I think this company would love me for those reasons too. And just really sticking beside that. And if you don't, scoot, I'll find a company that will.
Yes. Oh, that's so important. Affirming yourself, right? Saying like, I'm great. I'm smart. I can do this. I'm actually more than enough, in fact, right? And sometimes you have to tell yourselves that, right? So I'm curious, as we're talking about interviews, I want to know the tea. What is your best interview? What was your worst interview? I would love to know. And you can start with either one. Your spirit is moving me to.
I can begin. So I think my best interview was when I was, this is me actually being in an interview, was when I was my most confident, when I was articulate, when I kind of really knew my value and what I was going to be bringing and contributing to the company. It's also when I was humorous, friendly, and I felt like I was in control of the interview, that they weren't just interviewing me, but I was also interviewing them. And it felt like it was a Karl Velasco show, and to me, that was like the best interview that I had. And I think the worst interview that I've had was when it felt like I was at the finish line, and then I was almost at the end, and then not getting it. It was quite. It was quite an emotional and also a mental kind of journey that was, that really played on my insecurities and also played on, my self-worth. And I started to kind of really question it. To me, that was the worst interview, not because of, not because it was a terrible interview, but it was because of the way it made me feel during during and after. Oh, and also I went for an interview where it was someone that I dated. This was like 20 years ago. And then turned off, and it was someone I ghosted after. That was a terrible interview. This was 20 years ago, before LinkedIn. So definitely check LinkedIn before you actually turn up to an interview.
Oh, not you ghosting them. I'm sure they were like, next.
Oh, hi.
I might have just ended the call right there as soon as I hopped on. I was like, all right. For me, I think my best interview was, it was one where I just felt really comfortable. It was with my manager at, 2 companies ago, where from the get-go, it was clear that they had done their homework on me as well and were invested in me as a candidate, which made me feel comfortable. They talked a lot about my, not only like the work that I had done and kind of put out there, but also some of the other things I was involved in outside of that, right? I was, at that point in time, heavily involved in Out at BuzzFeed, which was our LGBTQ ERG. They talked a little bit about that work and some of the other things that they had heard. And so that kind of immediately put me at ease. And it was almost that moment of like, you've already have a baseline understanding of who I am. And these elements of my identity that I can sometimes be a little bit hesitant to bring up in an interview quickly. And I think that ended up being one of the best relationships I've ever had with the manager, just somebody who sees you and gets you. The worst was the flip side of that, where, I started to talk a little bit more about myself and talk about, this was a very large tech company that shall remain unnamed. And went through the interview process with them, and towards the end of it, right, as I talked about what I was passionate about and some of the projects that I had worked on, that a lot of them which involved, my own identity, or talking about like pride campaigns or anything like that, and having the kind of answer at the very end of the line being like, "Thank you for your time. We think you're a little bit too creative for us," which was kind of like, a little bit of, telling on themselves a little bit. And, that was the end of the conversation there.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Rahul. That's similarly, I wanted to start with my worst and end with the best, but I think the worst interview situations I've been in, one, somebody asked me what was the meaning of life, which was, I felt like very odd and not completely related to anything that we were talking about. And there's no right or wrong answer, so I didn't really know what the purpose of that question was. But other sort of pitfalls in interviews have been when I think you feel maybe sort of exploited in the interview. There's been times where you have to do projects and basically free labor. And you can be, I really have some thoughts about that, about how, worthwhile that is from the candidate to the employer. Because you can spend a lot of time, a lot of energy doing something and then not have it really, transpire to anything for you in the end. So I think that interviews like that have been really, really troubling. The best, I'd say, was the most recent interview I did. So for the job I have now, and similar to what Karl was saying, it was almost like dating. It was every interview panel that I had, we were able to connect something personally. And so it really moved beyond just the day to day about the work and the date, the functions of the job. You're going to be working with these people. You need to trust these people and you want to get along with these people and vice versa. So if you can really capture that lightning in a bottle, and that really stems from being your authentic self, I think that was the best. And it proved that once I was in the job that we were already getting along as we were in the interview. So it was a really positive experience, and I hope that everybody gets a chance to have an interview like that at least once.
Absolutely. Oh my God, you brought up the labor, and it took me right to my worst interview. Had me do like a whole project, and the whole vibe of the interview was like pressure, pressure, pressure. It was almost like I was on trial for some of the questions. And I was like, okay, if this is how you're treating me now, this is how you're going to treat me, even if I do get the job. So something I would think about going into interviews is, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. Like, it is definitely worth it to keep track of these things, keep track of how you feel and the vibe that you get from people, because it is so telling, because the company has put them in a place to interview. So that's already telling about the company culture. So that interview all was wrong. But the job that I have now was incredible. And I think the thing that I appreciated most from them was that I got the space and the chance to talk to them about what they're doing. I'm like, especially in DEI, where it's like, okay, the lip service a lot of the time is wild. So being able to really talk to people about the commitment, the passion, the frameworking, and everything. So I'm like, I know I'm not walking into a mess, was really important for me, and why it was my best interview to date.
Yes, doesn't it feel so good to be able to walk into a space and be yourself, and people not just accept you, but celebrate you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, not just like, I tolerate you, but like, no, I see you, and like, you are great. I know I wanted to speak a little bit about my best interview experience, because it is my current role at Shopify. And something interesting is when I interviewed, I was at a point where so before this role, I was a teacher, and I was at this point where I was like, I no longer want to be dealing with other people's children. I want to be myself. And mind you, I socially transitioned in January, so it's literally been a year. And so when I interviewed with Shopify, up until that point, I had tried everything to like, convince people that I was worth it and like command respect. And in this interview, I was like, I'm going to be myself in every single one of the interviews, to the point of, I was like, I wear headscarves all the time. I was like, I'm going to interview on my headscarf. I usually wear a unit. One of the interviews, I didn't wear hair. I was like, I'm going to give you natural hair, and I want to see if you're going to still give me this job, because I'm just as smart with a wig on as I am with a wig off, period. And they gave me the job. And like, I feel like that set the stage for like, what you're expecting with me. I'm going to be that girl all of the time. And I'm not going to switch it up on you. So sometimes being yourself is really how you can get that bag. And I just wanted to name. And I have another question for y'all, because like, interviewing is hard. Like I think, Karl, you said it's like dating. And that's what it really feels like, with so much projection. It feels like, you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You don't have the background for it, this, that, and the third. So how do y'all maintain your mental health when you're interviewing and dealing with those no's?
This is such a good question, because during the process of even like interviewing, searching for jobs, hearing the no, having to like pick yourself back up, it comes with a lot of self-preservation. Like, nobody is going to get you through these things like you can get yourself through these things if you keep reminding yourself, like, I am worthy, I'm valuable, I'm wonderful, I'm amazing, I'm handsome, whatever you have to tell yourself going into these things, keeping that in mind and keeping yourself afloat, and knowing also it's okay to be flexible, and give yourself time. If you're like, go, 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 and you reach a point where it's like, I need to step back and take a break, that is totally okay. It's all about preserving yourself. And since it's so taxing, especially for like queer and trans people of color, we got to just take a step back, regroup, maybe think about a new strategy for searching for jobs, being like, these roles keep it doesn't make it all the way through. Maybe there's something with the way I'm thinking about it, or saying, hey, along the way, I'm discovering some things that I realized I didn't like. Let me shift perspective and keep going. So staying flexible, I think, helped me as far as mental health, because I'm like, you know what? It's not me. It's not who I am. It's not my skill set. It's just about finding the right fit. So definitely keeping that in mind. Remember, it's not it's not you. You don't have to take all that in and internalize all that, but just keep supporting yourself and keeping track of yourself and how you're doing.
Yeah. You know what, the age-old quote, finding a job is a full-time job. So with that, I think it's really important to create boundaries for yourself. When I was unemployed for 3 months and I was actively looking for a job, I created hours for myself. So during these hours, maybe it was 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., that was when I was actively applying to jobs, pretty much nonstop. And then I would take a break and I would make sure I ate and nourished myself. I would take walks. I would go take interviews in coffee shops, whatever I could do to sort of make it fun and make it more sustainable for myself. And I like what you said, Jasmine, about being flexible. There are certain roles that you're going to be in the process and figure out, I don't know, it's not exciting me the way it should. And that's okay. You can give it maybe a little bit less energy and give more energy into the roles that you really are excited and passionate about. Like, know where to put your energy and know when to pull back and sort of, not phone it in, but definitely, you don't need to overexert yourself for every little thing, because you'll burn out. So that's what worked for me.
I think when you're applying for a lot of jobs, you really need to have thicker skin. What I found is when I was applying a lot, I went through a period where I was applying a lot, is I set up a routine to really protect myself. So it became this kind of routine. I do a certain kind of procedure. So I'm kind of applying for each of the jobs, and I'd always tackle it with passion, but removing the emotion out of it, because it is trying to find the right fit for you, and not every job that you're applying for is the right fit. And I think, and never lower your standards. And I think sometimes when you kept applying, you really need to know your self-worth, because what will happen is you'll end up just going for the job that's not right for you, or isn't what you're aspiring to, or are inspired by, because you're getting desperate. And I think you really need to just set a routine for yourself and really just go like this. And that's what I did when I was, during those kind of periods. And I think you really need to think positively. The right job will come along.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I think it's twofold. The first is thinking of any interview, good or bad, as practice, right? Like, learn from what worked well in your interviews, what didn't work well, and if it didn't go well for some reason, like, think through why and understand why, and figure out like what you could have done better and improve upon that, or what you didn't like about the interviewer from that side, so you know what to look out for in the future. And the second is to kind of think about, the interviews that don't go well sometimes hit hard, but those are also the ones where you realize that like that wouldn't have been a good fit. So it may be kind of tough now, but imagine what working there 6 months later could have been like if you had a bad experience with that interview. So, big plus one to all the other things, but like really like shaking it off at the end of the day, like you have to get yourself into the mentality of like an interview is an interview and it is an interview. And that's it.
Thanks, y'all. I'm seeing this question from Nay in the chat that is really striking a chord. She said, as a Black trans woman who knows herself as brilliant but lives in a world that pigeonholes and disregards, what do we do? And I feel like this kind of connects to the next question I wanted to ask, which is, what are the tangible tips that we have for job seekers, right? I can only speak from my experience, as a trans woman. And I know that the thing that I had to convince myself was I have to tell people that I'm brilliant. And that's what was hard, because I feel like culturally that was not ingrained in me, growing up. I'm African American. My daddy always taught me get what you get. You know what I mean? You have to work twice as hard to get half. And once you get that half, you have to just hold on to it. And so for a long time, I didn't like talk about myself like I'm the shit or like, see that for myself. But then once I got into the job seeking and needing a role, I realized like I can think all of these things about myself, but if people don't know who I am, they don't know my brand, they don't know what I stand for, then like there's not much that I actually have, right? And so a lot of it is like broadcasting on LinkedIn, right? Broadcasting what you stand for. What are your values? Like, who are you and why should people know you? And then creating and working with people to create as much content as you can to just like share yourself with the world, which can feel like a lot, especially under capitalism. But I'm curious, what do y'all do? What tangible pieces of advice do y'all have for job seekers?
I can jump in. I think that much of what you're saying, you have to know your values, but you also have to know your worth. And there's only so much time in an interview panel. Sometimes if you're on a phone screen, it might only be 15 minutes. If you can't, dispel how great you are in that conversation, something that I've done is I create, documents and drives with examples of my work, and I send it to people. And I said, I mentioned this in the interview, and I wanted to make sure that you could see it. Or we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but I wanted to make sure that I put this on your radar because I felt it was relevant. So whatever you can do to sort of, there's all kinds of websites you can use. Instagram is a helpful tool. Whatever you feel most comfortable in, make sure that you can sort of dispel that. It doesn't just have to be with your words in the interview. So yeah, think outside the box, get creative. There's so many ways to connect with people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. I use Squarespace to create my portfolio, which is like kind of atypical for the world of product marketing in particular, but having a wall of the work that I've done helps kind of add a little bit of weight to my name before I start that interview process. And it's a great way to then dive into like, well, let me tell you about this one thing that you saw in my portfolio, or throughout the interview, point people towards your portfolio and say, here, let me send you the link. Take a look at this piece of work. Here's, as you're answering the question, it's something that helps me a lot. Sometimes I can't find my own words to say what I need to, but the work can speak on that behalf. And I think the other thing is to also do your own research on the place that you're working, the interviewer, things that they're interested in, like go full blown FBI on them, and figure out like what are the things that you can weave into that conversation that show that you care, that show that you are thinking about it, that give you the opportunity to express what's in your head, your ideas, your thoughts, your creativity going into that interview.
Yeah, I wanted to just like plus one to that and make it genuine. I did tons of research on the people that I was interviewing with, and whether they were from a place that I had family or they went to school in a place that I was familiar with, I would ask them about it. And it sometimes led to really interesting conversations. So It's a really great thing to add.
And networking as well, right? When you can have people help you make connections or introductions, like lean on the people who are in this chat, lean on people on LinkedIn, have people make those cold intros. When someone says like, hey, I want you to meet, so-and-so, they're an incredible designer. Having people talk on your behalf also helps too.
I completely agree with research. I think research is so important. Like have a look at the company's mission statement, and show them how you align with that. If you and their values. I think that's really, really important. But I think another thing is, don't be scared to be your authentic self and really portray your value. To me, the world, everything is kind of rapidly changing at the moment. Brands are looking for ways to connect more, and they're looking for companies that are more socially aware, and to me, you're actually adding value to the company. So it is so important that and that you're also the person that has got a new perspective, and that is one thing that a lot of companies are looking for. But I think when you go to those interviews, you need to you need to learn how to read a room. Like what type of interview is this? Some are very kind of casual and conversational. And then you tackle the interview like that, and shine in that kind of way. And some are a bit more formal. You need to be able to be a bit like a chameleon, I would say, when you kind of go in those interviews and have different ways of actually, of running that particular interview. But I think the point that you've said, I think that is so important is, really know your worth, because knowing your worth helps you negotiate better, and it really helps you, form that kind of relationship and drive, the interview.
And one, because everything that everyone's saying is already incredible. One tangible thing that helped me in my most recent interview was actually taking the job posting, and I'd copy and paste the whole, what do we want you to do? Usually it's like a laundry list. Anyway, I would take it, copy and paste it, put it into a Word doc, and then I would actually go through it and think about all my experiences, memories, good times, whatever I'm passionate about, and really plug into those points. And I'm like, you can think whatever you want about me all day, but what you will see is that I am aligned with what you're looking for. And I'll literally have it to the side a little bit during the interview itself, and I can reference back to it. Because if you're like me, you might have a lot of thoughts, plus anxiety, plus nervousness, all that. Having that little sheet that's some notes jotted down, I like to color code mine, was really, really helpful. And it can still feel natural. You're looking for somebody who builds communities. Oh my God, one time at this point, I built community. I hosted this event. I brought people together when this happened. And it was incredible. They're like, oh, we do need somebody who can build community. So that's something that was helpful for me in the last interview.
Jasmine, that's such a pro tip. Literally pull up that job description, put your LinkedIn right next to it, and then on your piece of paper, write those notes that you're going to make sure that you hit. And as you hit them, cross it off, right? Because we're all brilliant, but we got to show you why. We have to show you why this experience is going to show you that we're, incredible and talented and brilliant and all the things.
Right.
Shout out to y'all. Y'all are so inspiring. I live, honestly. I'm curious, y'all. I would love to open up the floor here for some more questions from the audience. Passing the virtual mic around. Would love to hear from y'all if you have any questions for our distinguished panel today. And while I'm waiting for these questions, I do want to mention a Toni Morrison quote that sticks in my brain always, which is, when you get those jobs that you've been so brilliantly trained for, just remember your real job, if you're free, you need to free somebody else, right? If you have some power, then your job is to empower someone else. And so anybody in this chat who, knows a role, knows an opening, let's connect. Community is everything. And I tell you, I know the privilege that I hold, right? And I'm not afraid to pass the mic and help anybody else pull that ladder down. The crabs in a bucket mentality helps no one. We have to help each other, right? We're all we got in real life.
Gia, can I add to that? There's a quote I have, and I repeat this often, even in interview settings, is I always look around the room and see who's not here. How do we find them? How do we bring them in? How do we reach them? How do we find out about what they care about and make, inroads to making that happen? So, I encourage you all, just like you're saying, you have to give back to others, because likely somebody helped you once upon a time. So you have to continue the good charity around.
Yes. I see a question here in the chat. How do y'all calm inclusive thoughts while waiting to hear back from an interview? One of the things that I always do is the next thing. That thank you note is so important. It's ridiculously important. I send that thank you note every single time. So then if it doesn't happen for me and I didn't send that thank you note, I'm like, oh, it was on you. But that's one thing that I do.
I like to just literally keep on. After I've had an interview, and the way I'm set up is that I get really anxious, and then the interview happens, and it's usually fine. And then even the coming down is a lot. So I usually try to go do the activities that bring me joy, or I go sit down somewhere. I'll literally go sit down somewhere. Just go sit, listen to music, go for a walk, get some air, longboard, try not to fall off of it. All that good stuff is usually what helps me afterwards try to just come back down and relax a bit. And then just remember that it does take time. Sometimes getting clarity about the timeline after the interview is helpful, because putting those metrics in will stop me from being like anxious the whole time waiting. So just like with that thank you note saying, yeah, is there any metrics or work around what the timeline might be looking like? Just wanting to make sure I'm keeping a lookout or something like that.
I always have a moment of reflection, and so that I would literally look at what just happened or what happened in the interview, and see if I've learned anything from it, or has it shifted my journey, and I think that's really important, because their experiences are so valuable, whatever that experience may be. And so to me, it's really important to to have a moment of reflection at the end of any kind of interviews and whatnot.
So I'm seeing an excellent question in the chat. I would love y'all's thoughts on. What are your thoughts on how we can increase diversity at the executive level? That's $1 million question. What are y'all thinking?
Do we have all day?
I think we have 5 minutes.
I think it's a massive question, and I think that when I'm interviewing, for example, like I'm always looking out for people like me, and I don't see them, and it really made me question as to why are they not being given the opportunities? Are there not any platforms for them to be seen and heard? And I think there's still a lot of work that kind of needs to be done to really to really explore this, but it's also education. Like I feel like the company all needs to kind of learn together, because a lot of your juniors are going to be executives, and I think we need to make sure that we're in constant conversation and constant kind of education.
Talking about it consistently is a big thing. I think, wherever you are right now, keep pushing on your leaders above you to make sure that they're bringing other people into this space. It's one of those things that, can't happen overnight, can't even happen in a couple of years. It's going to take, a generation of workplace talent to get the leadership that we want to see represented. And the only way that that continues is by us having these kinds of conversations, by us helping each other. And I think somebody in the chat earlier said, as you rise, make sure you're pulling people up with you. And, that's how we get to the place that we want to be.
And I'd love to say, if you don't know, ask. So if there's those open forums that you can connect with leaders, ask them, what are their commitments to making a more inclusive workplace? And that includes the people who are at the company.
Yes, you can't be afraid to shake the table now, right? Like sometimes you're there. You can't just nod, right? You have to be the person that says the thing, because if not you, then who, right? I want to pass the mic to Daniel. Thank you for stepping up, my friend. Hey, Daniel.
So thank you guys so much. This has been really great listening to all the panels. This is what I didn't know I needed, because as a person of color, I think we don't realize like how few of us there are in a room, at a job, in an interview. And I'm really appreciating you guys adding people on LinkedIn, because now my feed is finally reflecting the color, the diversity, the alphabet mafia, and I love it. So one of the challenges that I often face is it's like, you go into these interviews, and, I've gone to many interviews. I just got laid up about a month ago from a tech company. And one of the challenges that I've always faced is, one, being maybe a little too colorful. And two is that I always wonder if there's unconscious bias, because I feel like I have to work that much harder to get the same opportunities as some of the people, like some of my other peers who are not people of color, trans, gay, whatever. And how do you stay motivated and focused and not let those things kind of bring you down? Because I do find that it's a challenge to always be in the room and then not be able to get to that next level.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you.
I think it's exactly what we were kind of discussing before. I think you really need to go in there and really know your self-worth. You know, this is my worth as you're kind of going in there, and if you know it's really complicated, you know, because it can sometimes be really disheartening. But I think if you know what your self-worth and you know what it is that you can kind of contribute in the company, if they don't take it on, then it's their loss, you know, and actually you don't even want to work there if they can't actually see you for you know how precious you are, you know. And so I think you don't want to be there anyway. So I think you just need to just get pursuing and just continue, try and tackle everything with passion.
Agreed with Karl. I mean, selfishly, find ways to stick it to them. Continue to do really good work and just make it undeniable that you belong there, that you're contributing there. And I then like to find those people who have kind of worked their way into some of those positions where they are seen, and like really connect with them and get other people to advocate on your behalf. And that's when those people can't really deny it again. And that's one of the tactics that I use is to try and find mentors and advocates at the leadership level, people who are well recognized and respected at the company, who will then, you know, advocate on my behalf.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in that in the interview process, feel free to throw them some softball questions too, right? Like you're interviewing them as well. So ask them about current events that are important to you. You could ask them about the pandemic. You could ask them about remote work. You could ask them about the rise in crime against LGBTQ individuals, and see what their response is. If their response lines up with something that you feel is authentic to your values, then you know that they are, you know, should be the type of place that you would want to work at, and that they would also be acknowledging your talents as well. But if they sort of stumble and, you know, over their words and they don't have good answers, you know, that could be a red flag. And perhaps that might not be the space that you want to really subscribe to anyway.
Yeah, and just to jump off that as well, even just reaching out to whoever the recruiter or poster is, like if it's via LinkedIn or if they have like the communication, and doing a soft screening on them before you even jump into it, because it's exhausting to constantly go into those spaces and not only have to deal with feeling like people are having all these biases on you that they're putting onto you that has nothing to do with like your worth, your value. You can just kind of spare yourself some of that by being like, I'm trying to preserve myself so that I can put my best forward when I do get that interview that's going to really click. What's your DEI statement looking like? Like, what is your commitment to cultural competency? What's your inclusion? Because people will then say, well, you know, and it's freeze frame from there. So even just doing the things to protect yourself from having to go through what can be kind of trauma in a way, finding the ways to even avoid that before having to go into it through research, through talking to people who are available and forward facing could definitely be helpful for self-preservation.
I always think about what Crystal of Asia said. I have a right to show my color, darling. I'm beautiful. I know I'm beautiful. You have a right to show your color, right? And people who are not afraid of it, like they're going to see you and they're going to see that beauty and that light that you bring to a room. And how dare you, you know, take that away from people just because somebody might have an issue with it. So.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hi, Ash. I'm going to kick it over to my wonderful friend, Ash.
Hello, mi gente. Ash here from House. All right, so this is our closing remarks. I'm like, whew, what a summit. Like, I'm blown away. I'm inspired. There's just so many feelings. Like, I'm just because I'm a Pisces, but like, you know, there's a lot of feelings, right? And what about y'all? Like, please drop those emojis, comments in the chat. Yes. Okay, Cancer. All right. Yes, we love all of it. So, I, personally got involved with House because I could see the potential, the possibilities, and just how we show up and show out for the community. And I feel like today is no different, right? In fact, I feel like we came out full force today. We provided space for queer, trans people of color to be vulnerable and have difficult conversations. But most importantly, we held one another in these hard times and poured what we could into each other. And that's what House is all about, to be a community for us, by us. And it's evident with today's learnings. There's so many gems, right? And I just want to name a few. So from our keynote today, reframing and defining failure and not giving energy to that failure, but instead the recovery. You better move. Not all money is good money. And we don't have to work at Jim and Sally's company, okay? Like, we deserve better, and there is better out there. The bounce back. Understand your self-worth and protect your peace, even if it inconveniences others, especially when they ain't paying your bills, baby, okay? And finally, last but not least, unique. With interviewing, it's a journey of self-preservation, and, it's not easy. We have to stay flexible amongst rejections, give ourselves breaks, and know where to put your energy and where to pull it. Overall, give that grace to yourself. So before we part ways, a couple of things to note. We have one last session before we let y'all go. It's a virtual Kiki, so it's kind of like speed networking meets chat roulette. You'll get paired with someone and have limited time to connect before being paired with somebody else. And that'll go on for 30 minutes. And if you want an IRL Kiki, we're going to be hosting 2 happy hours tonight, one in New York at Pink Metal and one in LA at 10 DTLA. And Beyonce will be on the track. So, we'll drop those Eventbrite links and we hope to see you there. We also have a digital goodie bag for you, just a little something for our friends. And this also includes some promo codes from QTPOC vendors. So if you got a little bit of holiday shopping to do, please support them. And we also have a link to our survey summit in that document too. Please fill this out. We'd love to hear your feedback and just continue to bring more events like this to y'all. Finally, we want to stay connected with you even after today because we're community, right? We have a Slack channel, which will have a separate link that will be dropped in the chat as well, and a community directory that we'd love for you to join. And yeah, so once the virtual Kiki ends, that will wrap up today's summit. And, we'll see you tonight at our happy hours. Big thank you from the House team for joining. Big thank you to the speakers and the attendees. Like, y'all made it what it is today, and the partners too. We couldn't have done it without you. Please, fam, stay safe and much love to y'all.